Priscilla, have you ever thought of using your beauty for something bigger? Victoria asked, leaning in with a sly smile. Mary grinned. People say you're the most beautiful girl in town. Even rich men from the city would want to marry you. Priscilla shrugged. It's just looks. It doesn't mean much. They were sitting under the big mango tree, eating roasted corn. The evening breeze was cool, and the moon had started to rise. Victoria raised an eyebrow. But it could. Imagine marrying someone wealthy. You wouldn't have to stay in this small town forever. In a serene town, surrounded by golden fields and whispering trees, lived a girl, Priscilla. She was so stunning that people often paused to admire her. Her skin shimmered like the morning sun, her smile gleamed like the stars, and her laughter was a melody that brought joy to all. Priscilla had two closest friends, Victoria and Mary. They were inseparable, like shadows that never left her side. They laughed together, dined together, and shared secrets. To Priscilla, they were more than just friends, they were like sisters. But there was one person who did not trust them, her mother. Priscilla, my child, her mother would say, eyes filled with concern. Be careful, not everyone who smiles at you is truly your friend. These girls seem insincere, their hearts are not pure. Priscilla would chuckle and shake her head. Mama, you worry too much. Victoria and Mary are my best friends. You don't have to like them, but I do. Her mother sighed, saying nothing more. She knew her daughter was stubborn, just like her father. Yet deep inside, she felt something was amiss. One evening, Priscilla and her friends sat under a grand mango tree, munching on roasted corn and laughing. The evening breeze was cool, and the moon had begun its slow ascent. Priscilla, Victoria said with a sly smile, have you ever thought about how lucky you are? Everyone in this town admires you. Yes, Mary added. People say you are the most beautiful girl they have ever seen. Even wealthy men from the city would love to marry you. Priscilla smiled shyly. It's just beauty, it doesn't mean much. But deep down, she enjoyed the attention. Her friends constantly reminded her of how special she was. Then Victoria leaned closer. Priscilla, have you ever thought of using your beauty for something bigger? Imagine marrying a rich man or becoming famous. You wouldn't have to stay in this little town forever. Priscilla frowned. I like my life the way it is. Mary clicked her tongue. But don't you want more? We want more, Priscilla, and we can help each other get it. A strange feeling crept into Priscilla's heart. She pushed it away and forced a smile. We have everything we need. Let's just enjoy our friendship. I like my life the way it is. But that night, as she lay in bed, her mother's words echoed in her mind. Not everyone who smiles at you is your friend. Something felt off, but Priscilla dismissed it. After all, these were her best friends. What could possibly go wrong? 1 week later, the village was alive with excitement. The town criers beat their drums as they marched through the streets, their voices ringing through the air. Hear ye! The prince is returning from overseas. He has studied in the land of the white men, and now he comes home. The king had proclaimed that the prince would soon take a wife, but only a pure, untouched maiden would be chosen. The news spread like wildfire. Mothers hurried to their daughters, asking questions they had never dared to ask before. My child, tell me the truth, are you still clean? Some daughters bowed their heads in shame, unable to answer. Others wept as their mothers scolded them for throwing away their chance at royalty. But Abigail had nothing to hide. She was pure, untouched by any man. Upon hearing the news, her mother turned to Priscilla, grasping her hands tightly. My child, the gods have kept you pure for a reason. This is your moment. But remember, not everyone will be happy for you. Be careful. Priscilla smiled, her heart fluttering with anticipation. Mama, don't worry. If it is my destiny, then it will happen. The next morning, Mary and Victoria sat beneath a tree, their faces clouded with jealousy. The village still buzzed with excitement over the prince's arrival, but their hearts burned with envy. Mary sighed, bitterness evident on her face. Priscilla is so lucky. She is still a virgin and the most beautiful girl in the village. The prince will surely choose her. Victoria clenched her fists, her eyes dark with resentment. I won't allow that to happen, she hissed. Why must it always be Priscilla? She has everything, beauty, respect, and now she might become a princess too. No. We must do something. Mary's eyes widened. But what can we do? The whole village knows she is pure. The elders will test every girl before the prince chooses a wife. A wicked smile spread across Victoria's face as a sinister idea took root. We don't need to change the truth. We only need to change what people believe. If the village thinks she is not pure, the prince will never choose her. Mary gasped. You mean, we should lie? Victoria nodded, her grin widening. Yes. We will spread a rumor, a terrible one. By the time we are done, no one will believe that Priscilla is still a virgin. Mary hesitated for a moment, then her lips curled into a wicked smile. I like this plan. Let's do it, quickly. As Mary and Victoria made their way toward Abigail's house, Mary suddenly halted, her face clouded with doubt. Victoria, I don't think the villagers will believe us, she whispered. You know how much they adore Priscilla. They trust her completely. If we start a rumor, people will demand proof. What if it backfires? Victoria flashed a sly smile. I already have another plan. Just follow my lead. When they reached Priscilla's house, she was outside, sweeping the compound. Her face lit up with a warm smile when she spotted them. Victoria, Mary. You didn't tell me you were coming. Victoria and Mary exchanged a quick glance before settling onto a wooden bench. Priscilla, Victoria began, her tone laced with excitement. We have something to tell you, but you must promise not to tell anyone. Priscilla stopped sweeping and turned to them with curiosity. What is it? Mary leaned forward and whispered, we both have boyfriends. Priscilla's eyes widened in shock. What? But how? You never mentioned anything, and I never even noticed. Victoria giggled. We kept it a secret. But it's amazing, Priscilla. Having a boyfriend is wonderful. You should try it. Priscilla shook her head firmly. I don't want a boyfriend. I want to remain a virgin until I get married. Victoria rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Priscilla. You're too strict. You know Erickson has been admiring you for a long time. He likes you. Why not give him a chance? Priscilla's expression hardened. Never. I will wait for my husband. I don't want to ruin my future. Victoria and Mary exchanged another glance, disappointment flickering in their eyes. Their plan had failed. Fine, Victoria said with a forced smile. We were just trying to help. Without prolonging the conversation, they stood up and left, frustration boiling inside them. As they walked away, Mary let out a deep sigh. What do we do now? She won't fall for it. Victoria smirked. Don't worry. I know what to do. The long-awaited day arrived. The entire village gathered in the palace square, dressed in their finest clothes. Songs and drum beats filled the air as they celebrated the arrival of the prince. The rhythmic pounding of drums echoed as Prince Henry stepped out of his royal carriage. He was tall, strikingly handsome, and draped in rich robes that shimmered under the sunlight. His keen eyes swept through the crowd, searching for the woman who would become his bride. And then, he saw her, Priscilla. The moment his gaze fell upon her, his heart skipped a beat. Priscilla's beauty was unlike anything he had ever seen. She stood with poise, her skin glowing, her smile soft yet commanding. There was something pure and enchanting about her, something that drew him in. Leaning towards his father, the king, he whispered, "She is the one." The village elders conducted the required tests, confirming that Priscilla was untouched and pure. She was also widely known for her kindness and respect toward everyone. That evening, the town crier delivered the long-anticipated announcement. Hear ye! The prince has chosen his bride. Prince Henry will marry Priscilla, for she is pure, beautiful, and virtuous. The villagers erupted in joyous celebration. Priscilla's mother wept tears of happiness, thanking the gods for blessing her daughter. But not everyone rejoiced. Standing at the back of the crowd, Victoria and Mary seethed with jealousy. This cannot be happening, Esther hissed, her hands trembling with rage. Priscilla will become a princess while we remain nobodies. Victoria's eyes blazed with hatred. I told you, don't worry. I know what to do. Mary turned to her, suspicious. What do you mean? Victoria smirked. If we can't stop the prince from choosing her, we'll make sure he changes his mind. 3 days later, Priscilla's mother was preparing to go to the farm. She secured her wrapper tightly around her waist and picked up her basket. Priscilla, my child, she called. Your wedding is in a few days. I want to go to the farm and gather some yams for the house. Come with me. Priscilla stretched and yawned. Mama, I'm tired. Let me rest today. Her mother studied her for a moment before sighing. All right. But listen carefully, I had a bad dream last night. It was troubling. Priscilla frowned. What did you see? Her mother shook her head. I cannot explain it, but my heart is not at peace. Something is wrong. Do not go anywhere today, especially with Victoria and Mary. Promise me. Priscilla chuckled lightly. Mama, you worry too much. Her mother did not laugh. I am serious, Priscilla. Promise me. Seeing the worry in her mother's eyes, Priscilla nodded. I promise, Mama. Her mother reached into a small clay pot and pulled out a smooth, round stone. She placed it in a pot of water and handed it to Priscilla. Before you leave this house, make sure this stone becomes soft. Until then, stay inside. Priscilla stared at the stone and laughed. Mama, how can a stone become soft? Her mother gave her a long, knowing look. Exactly. Do not leave this house. With that, she picked up her basket and left for the farm. Priscilla sat on the wooden bench, staring at the pot of water. She shook her head and chuckled softly. Mama and her strange ways, she muttered to herself. She had no idea that danger was already creeping toward her doorstep. Moments later, Victoria and Mary arrived at Priscilla's house, their faces lit with forced smiles, but their hearts brimmed with envy. Priscilla, come with us to the river, Victoria urged. Let's go for a swim. Priscilla shook her head. I can't. My mother told me not to leave. She asked me to cook this stone until it turns soft before I go anywhere. Victoria and Mary burst into laughter, clutching their stomachs as they struggled to breathe. Are you serious? Mary asked between giggles. How can you cook a stone until it becomes soft? That's the most ridiculous thing we've ever heard. Priscilla sighed. I told my mother the same thing, but she insisted. Victoria rolled her eyes. Priscilla, think about it. Do you honestly believe she meant it? She was just joking. You know how our mothers say strange things sometimes. She leaned in closer. Forget about that. Let's go swim. You know how hot the sun is today. The cool water will feel amazing. Mary nodded eagerly. Besides, you're getting married in a few days. Soon, you'll be a queen, and queens don't bathe in the river with common people. This might be our last chance to enjoy ourselves the way we used to. Priscilla hesitated. But Mama warned me not to go anywhere. Victoria flashed a sweet smile. Oh, Priscilla, you're too obedient. Your mother is in the farm. She won't even know you left. We'll just swim for a short time and return before she gets back. Mary placed a hand on her shoulder. Don't forget, we've always done everything together. Are you too special to be with us now? Priscilla glanced at them. The thought of leaving her friends behind saddened her. They had always been together, sharing laughter and mischief. And they were right, soon, she would be a queen, and things would never be the same. She smiled. Alright, let's go. But we won't stay long. Victoria and Mary exchanged a quick glance of triumph. With that, the three girls left for the river. As they walked, Victoria and Mary deliberately chose a hidden path, away from the usual route villagers used. The narrow trail was overgrown with tall grasses and thick bushes. Priscilla glanced around, feeling uneasy. The silence was eerie, and the trees cast long, looming shadows over the path. Something felt off. She halted. Wait. Why are we going this way? Isn't this the path to the Forbidden River? The one my mother warned me about. Victoria clicked her tongue in frustration. Priscilla, you worry too much. Always listening to your mother like a child. Nothing will happen. Mary nodded in agreement. Yes, we've gone there many times, and nothing bad has ever happened. Your mother is just overprotective. Priscilla still felt uncertain, but she didn't want to seem weak. They had always teased her for being overly cautious. She exhaled. Are you sure nothing will happen? Victoria rolled her eyes. Of course. You'll see how beautiful the water is. Come on, before people start looking for us. Priscilla hesitated, then followed. When they arrived at the river, her eyes widened. The water was crystal clear, reflecting the sky. The sound of the rushing stream filled the air, and a cool breeze made the place feel serene. Yet, deep inside, something felt off. Victoria and Mary turned to her with mischievous smiles. Priscilla, we're here now. Let's bathe, Victoria said, unwrapping her cloth and stepping closer to the water. Priscilla shook her head. No, I don't want to. I agreed to come, but I won't enter the river. Mary scoffed. Oh, stop being stubborn. We are already here. Just get in and enjoy yourself. Priscilla stepped back. I don't feel comfortable. I'll wait for you both on the shore. Victoria's eyes darkened with frustration. She hadn't brought Priscilla here just to sit and watch. No, Priscilla. You must bathe with us. You always think you're better than us. Today, you do as we do. She grabbed Priscilla's hand, trying to pull her in, but Priscilla resisted. Let me go, Victoria. I don't want to. Mary joined in, pushing from behind. But Priscilla stood firm. I am leaving, she shouted. Just as she turned to walk away, Victoria's rage exploded. With all her strength, she shoved Priscilla into the river. Priscilla screamed as she plunged into the deep water. The moment her body touched the river, something strange happened. The water swirled around her, forming a small whirlpool. Victoria and Mary stepped back in shock. The water shimmered, and in an instant, Priscilla was gone. In her place, a beautiful fish with golden scales surfaced. Its sorrowful eyes were filled with confusion. It was Priscilla. For a moment, silence filled the air. Then, Victoria and Mary burst into laughter. Look at her, Mary mocked. She wanted to be a queen. Now, she's just a fish. Victoria clapped her hands in amusement. Let's see how she'll marry the prince now. Satisfied, they turned and walked away, feeling victorious. The river was now silent, except for the golden fish swimming sadly, its heart heavy with pain and betrayal. Meanwhile, Priscilla's mother was still in the farm, gathering yams into her basket. The sun was high, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. Everything seemed peaceful until a strange bird landed on a nearby branch and began to sing. But its melody was not ordinary, it carried a warning. Go home, go home. Your daughter is in danger. Run before it's too late. Priscilla's mother froze, her heart pounding. She dropped the yam in her hands and wiped her sweaty forehead. This cannot be a joke, she whispered. The gods used birds to send messages. Without hesitation, she grabbed her basket and ran as fast as her legs could carry her. Her feet pounded the dusty path as fear gripped her heart. When she reached home, she called out, "Priscilla, my child." Silence. She rushed inside, searching every corner. No sign of Priscilla. Running outside, her heart raced. Tears filled her eyes as she fell to her knees. "Oh, my only child. I told her not to leave the house. Oh Lord, let nothing happen to her." Soon, the news spread like wildfire. Priscilla was missing. Villagers gathered in groups, whispering. Some ran to the palace to inform the elders, while others searched the forest. Even Victoria and Mary joined the search, pretending to be concerned. They wore sad faces, shedding fake tears. "Priscilla is missing," Victoria wailed. "Oh, where could she be? She was like a sister to us." "We hope nothing bad happened to her," Mary added, shaking her head. But deep inside, they were rejoicing. Their evil plan had worked. Priscilla was gone, and no one would ever know the truth. Victoria observed the entire village still searching for Priscilla. She realized this was the perfect moment to act. If Priscilla was truly gone forever, the prince would need another bride, and who better than her? She adorned herself in her finest wrapper, applied oil to her skin to make it glow, and arranged her beads neatly. Then, with unwavering confidence, she walked straight to the palace. Upon arrival, she found Prince Henry seated in the royal courtyard, surrounded by guards and elders, his face clouded with worry. Victoria curtsied and spoke sweetly. "My prince, I know you are troubled. I came to comfort you. You don't have to grieve over Priscilla. Perhaps she was never meant to be your wife?" Prince Henry barely acknowledged her. "I do not wish to talk right now." But Victoria was determined. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "My prince, I came because I have something important to tell you. Something about Priscilla." Prince Henry's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" Victoria sighed, feigning sadness. "I didn't want to say this before, but I believe you deserve the truth. Priscilla must have run away with her lover. She is not as innocent as everyone believes." The prince sat up, his expression darkening. "What are you saying?" Victoria quickly continued. "The test conducted on her was a lie. Priscilla bribed them to declare her pure. In reality, she had a secret lover, and now she has run away with him." A heavy silence settled over the palace. The elders and guards exchanged glances, whispering among themselves. Prince Henry clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. He stood up and faced Victoria, his voice icy. "Do you take me for a fool?" Victoria's heart pounded. "My prince, I only—" "Enough," the prince thundered. "I see through your lies. I have heard enough of your nonsense. You are nothing but a jealous and wicked girl." Victoria's eyes widened in shock. "My prince, I was only—" Prince Henry raised his hand, cutting her off. "I do not want to see you near this palace again. If you ever set foot here, you will regret it." Shame washed over Victoria. The guards and elders stared at her with disgust. She had failed. With her head bowed and heart heavy with disappointment, she turned and walked away. As she stepped beyond the palace gates, anger and frustration boiled within her. She had lost this battle, but in her mind, the war was far from over. After Victoria left in disgrace, silence filled the palace. An elder shook his head. "That girl seems suspicious. I don't trust her." Another elder nodded in agreement. "Yes, but we have no proof. No one saw them together the day Priscilla disappeared. We have nothing against her." Prince Henry sat back on his royal seat, his fist clenched, his heart heavy with frustration and worry. Priscilla had vanished without a trace, and now, wicked tongues sought to tarnish her name. He took a deep breath and looked at his chief guard. "At sunrise tomorrow, send my warriors on another search. They must comb every river, every bush, every hidden corner. Priscilla is the woman I desire, and I will not marry another until she returns safely." The elders nodded, recognizing the depth of the prince's love for Priscilla. "We will find her, my prince," the chief guard assured him. "If she is alive, we will bring her back." Prince Henry's jaw tightened. "She is alive. I can feel it." That night, while the village slept, the prince stood by his window, gazing into the dark sky. His heart ached. "Priscilla, where are you?" he whispered. Far from the palace, in the cold waters of the forbidden river, a golden fish swam restlessly. Its eyes held sadness, the heart of a human, the soul of a girl once loved. Meanwhile, Mary grew increasingly restless. She had not been herself since Priscilla disappeared. Every night, she had the same terrifying dream, Priscilla, trapped in the river, staring at her with sorrowful human eyes. A golden fish, yet still Priscilla. She would wake up drenched in sweat, her heart pounding. She couldn't take it anymore. One evening, she ran to Victoria, her voice trembling. "Victoria, I can't do this anymore. I see Priscilla in my dreams every night. She looks at me like she knows what we did. I'm afraid to sleep." Victoria rolled her eyes. "You worry too much, Mary. Your mind is playing tricks on you." Mary shook her head. "No, Victoria. It's real. I feel like something terrible is about to happen to us. I want to confess." Victoria's face darkened. "Confess? Are you mad? If you say anything, we are finished. Do you want to be banished from the village? Or worse, killed?" Mary wiped her sweaty face. "But Victoria, I can't live like this. I just want to sleep in peace." Victoria sighed and reached into a small pouch hidden in her wrapper. She pulled out a dark powder and handed it to Mary. "Rub this on your face before you sleep," she instructed. "It will stop the nightmares. Priscilla is gone and is never coming back. You need to forget her." Mary hesitated but, desperate for rest, took the powder. That night, she applied it to her face and closed her eyes, hoping for peace. But she never woke up. By morning, Mary lay motionless on her mat, cold and lifeless. Her family screamed in terror, and soon the entire village gathered in shock. News spread like wildfire. People whispered, some in fear, others in suspicion. "I knew it," a woman murmured. "Those 3 girls were never as innocent as we thought." Another villager nodded. "Especially Priscilla. She always acted superior just because she was more beautiful." Someone scoffed. "I don't even want Priscilla to be found. The prince should marry my daughter instead." "No," another woman shouted. "The prince will marry my daughter, not your ill-mannered child." A heated argument erupted among the villagers, each mother vying for her daughter to become the next queen. Amidst the chaos, one person remained silent, Victoria. Fear pounded in her chest as she stared at Mary's lifeless body. She had promised her that the powder would bring peaceful sleep. But now, Mary was dead, and Victoria knew this was no ordinary death. Meanwhile, Priscilla's mother, desperate and heartbroken, ventured deep into the forest to seek the powerful native doctor. She had walked for hours, her feet aching, but she refused to stop until she found help for her only child. When she arrived at the shrine, the native doctor was already waiting, as if he had foreseen her arrival. He sat before a fire, its flickering flames casting eerie shadows across his old, wise face. He tossed some cowries on the ground, muttered strange incantations, and then lifted his gaze to meet hers. "My daughter," he said, his voice calm yet firm. "You seek answers, but be warned, the truth is bitter." Priscilla's mother swallowed hard. "Please, tell me what happened to my child. Where is she? Who did this to her?" The native doctor sighed deeply and pointed at the fire. "Look into the flames. You will see for yourself." Priscilla's mother leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the fire. At first, she saw nothing. Then, slowly, images began to form. She saw Priscilla walking cheerfully with Victoria and Mary, their faces warm with laughter as they led her toward the forbidden river. Then, in a shocking instant, she saw Victoria push Priscilla into the water. The flames flickered, and Priscilla vanished, replaced by a golden fish struggling helplessly in the river. Priscilla's mother gasped, tears rolling down her cheeks. Victoria. I knew it. I never trusted those wicked girls. They have destroyed my daughter's life. She sprang to her feet. I must return to the village now. I will tell everyone what they have done. The native doctor shook his head. No, woman. You must come yourself. Calm down, she cried. My daughter is gone. She was meant to be a bride, a queen. Now she is trapped in the river like an ordinary fish. The native doctor leaned forward. Listen carefully. The river goddess has not fully claimed her yet. You have 7 days before she completely transforms into a fish forever. If that happens, nothing, no power, can bring her back. Priscilla's mother's heart pounded. Oh, my child. What must I do? The native doctor reached into a calabash and retrieved a small brown powder wrapped in leaves, placing it in her trembling hands. Tomorrow, at midnight, he instructed, go to the river and sprinkle this into the water. If you do, your daughter will return to her human form. Priscilla's mother clutched the powder tightly. That's all. The native doctor's expression darkened. No, that is not all. You must not tell anyone, not even the prince. If anyone discovers this, the ritual will fail, and Priscilla will be lost forever. Priscilla's mother's hands shook. I won't tell a soul. I only want my child back. The native doctor nodded. Then go, and be cautious. The gods are watching. Tears streamed down Priscilla's mother's face as she turned to leave. She wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. Tomorrow, my child, she whispered. Tomorrow, you will be free. With renewed hope, she left the shrine, clutching the powder as though her life depended on it. She had only one chance. If she failed, Priscilla would be lost forever. Unbeknownst to her, Victoria had already uncovered her plans. Her spiritual mother, a wicked and powerful woman, had revealed everything through dark magic. She had shown Victoria how Priscilla's mother had sought the native doctor, how she had received a special powder to save Priscilla, and when the ritual would take place. Victoria was furious. She had worked too hard to get rid of Priscilla. There was no way she would allow her to return. You must stop her, her spiritual mother warned. If Priscilla comes back, your life is ruined. That night, under the cover of darkness, Victoria crept into Priscilla's mother's house. She moved like a shadow, careful not to make a sound. She had one mission, to steal the powder and ensure Priscilla remained lost forever. She searched the room and finally found the small, leaf-wrapped powder hidden under a mat. A wicked smile spread across her face as she picked it up. Now, let's see how you will save your foolish daughter, she thought. But just as she turned to leave, a voice stopped her. You evil girl. What are you doing here? Victoria froze. She turned slowly and saw Priscilla's mother standing at the door, her eyes blazing with fury. Priscilla's mother clenched her fist. After everything you did to my daughter, you still have the audacity to come into my house. Victoria laughed mockingly. Your daughter thought she was untouchable. Now she's gone forever. You old, foolish woman, you always boasted about how decent and pure she was. And now, look at her, nothing but a stupid fish swimming in the river. Priscilla's mother's eyes filled with tears, but she did not back down. You loose, desperate child, she spat. You were never good enough to stand beside Priscilla. That's why you hated her. You are nothing but an empty soul filled with jealousy. Victoria's eyes darkened with rage. She had heard enough. You talk too much, old woman, she hissed. Since you love your daughter so much, let's see how you will save her now. Before Priscilla's mother could react, Victoria pulled out a small charm wrapped in red cloth. She whispered dark words and struck Priscilla's mother on the forehead with it. A cold wind swept through the room. Priscilla's mother let out a cry and fell to her knees. Her eyes widened in horror. She could no longer see. She could no longer hear. She could no longer speak. She was deaf, dumb, and blind. Victoria stood over her, laughing. Now, you will never be able to tell anyone about Priscilla. The ritual will fail, and she will be lost forever. She stepped over the helpless woman and walked out of the house, feeling victorious, the stolen powder clutched tightly in her hands. Priscilla is doomed, she thought, grinning wickedly as she vanished into the night. The only sound in the house was the muffled, broken cries of Priscilla's mother, trapped in a silent, dark world. Her daughter's fate now hung by a thread. The next morning, the native doctor sat in his shrine, deep in meditation. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open, his face darkening. He had seen everything, how Victoria had stolen the powder, how she had attacked Priscilla's mother, leaving her blind, deaf, and dumb. Fury ignited within him. This wickedness must not go unpunished, he muttered. Without hesitation, he grabbed his staff, tied his charms around his waist, and set off toward the home of Victoria's spiritual mother, the evil woman who had been supporting her. When he arrived, the air was thick with dark energy. The wicked woman sat outside, chewing bitter cola, her long fingernails tapping against her knee. She smirked when she saw him. "So, the great native doctor has come to challenge me," she sneered. "You are wasting your time. Priscilla will never return." The native doctor remained unfazed. "You have used your powers for evil for too long. Today, you will face the consequences." The wind picked up, shaking the trees. Birds screeched and fled. The two powerful spiritual leaders stood facing each other, eyes burning with unseen energy. The wicked woman clapped her hands, and a strong wind blew dust into the air, forming a dark cloud. "You cannot defeat me," she screamed. The native doctor slammed his staff into the ground, and the earth trembled. "Light always defeats darkness," he roared. A fierce spiritual battle erupted. The wicked woman summoned a fiery whirlwind, but the native doctor stretched his hand, turning it into harmless water. She hurled a lightning bolt at him, but he blocked it with his staff. She shrieked in frustration, her body trembling with rage. "I will not lose." The native doctor chanted powerful words, and a golden light shot from his staff, striking the wicked woman in the chest. She let out a piercing cry and collapsed, powerless. "It is over for you," the native doctor declared. "Your wickedness ends today." With one final chant, the evil woman vanished into thin air, never to be seen again. The native doctor dusted his hands. Now, it is time to fix what has been broken. He hurried to Priscilla's mother's house, finding her still on the floor, trapped in darkness and silence. "My daughter, rise," the native doctor commanded, placing his hand on her forehead. A strong wind filled the room. Suddenly, Priscilla's mother gasped, her vision returned, her ears opened, her voice freed. She blinked in disbelief, touching her face. "I can see. I can hear." Tears of joy streamed down her cheeks. The native doctor nodded. "The gods have restored you." He handed her another powder. "Now, go and save your daughter before it is too late." Priscilla's mother wasted no time. Wrapping her cloth tightly, she dashed out of the house, racing toward the river, her heart pounding. As she reached the forbidden waters, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the surface. She fell to her knees, unwrapped the powder, and whispered, "O gods of the river, hear my cry. Return my daughter to me." She sprinkled the powder into the water. For a moment, nothing happened. The river remained still. Then, the water began to bubble, glowing with a strange golden light. The air became thick with power. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the depths. Slowly, gracefully, Priscilla rose, her golden fish scales fading as she transformed back into a human. Her eyes met her mother's, and tears streamed down her face. "Priscilla, my child." They ran into each other's arms, sobbing. "You are back, my daughter." "Oh, my God, thank you." Priscilla's mother wept. Priscilla clung to her mother, overwhelmed. "I thought I would never see you again, mother. My child, you will never suffer again. You are free." The wind whispered through the trees as if the gods themselves were celebrating. But while mother and daughter rejoiced, far away in the village, Victoria had no idea her greatest nightmare was about to unfold. Meanwhile, the native doctor stormed into Victoria's compound, his staff in hand, his eyes burning with righteous anger. The village had suffered enough at her hands. Justice had to be served. Victoria sat outside, chewing on sugarcane. When she saw him, she rolled her eyes and stood up. "Old man, what do you want?" she sneered. The native doctor pointed his staff at her. "You wicked child. You destroyed an innocent girl's life. You betrayed a friend who trusted you, stole, lied, and used evil charms to harm her mother. Today, you will face the consequences of your actions." Victoria laughed mockingly. "You can do nothing to me. Do you think I fear you? My powerful spiritual mother backs me. You are nothing compared to her." The native doctor chuckled darkly, shaking his head. "Your spiritual mother is gone. She has been defeated. You stand alone now." Victoria's laughter stopped. Her face turned pale. "What did you say?" The native doctor's voice thundered. "Your time of wickedness is over." Before Victoria could react, he struck his staff on the ground and shouted, "Let madness consume you for your evil deeds." A powerful wind swirled around Victoria, lifting dust and dry leaves into the air. She screamed, clutching her head. Suddenly, she began laughing and crying at once. She spun in circles, pulling at her hair. The gathered villagers gasped in horror. "Oh, she has run mad," someone whispered in shock. Victoria tore her wrapper and dashed wildly through the village, laughing hysterically while mumbling to herself. Then, as if an unseen force drove her, she turned and sprinted straight to the palace. The palace guards saw her racing towards the gates and moved to stop her, but Prince Henry, hearing the commotion, stepped forward. "Let her come," he commanded. Victoria fell to her knees before him, her eyes wide with madness. She laughed and cried simultaneously, shaking her head. my prince, I did it. I did everything," she wailed. "I pushed Priscilla into the river. I lied about her. I stole the powder from her mother. I struck her mother with blindness, deafness, and dumbness. I wanted to be your wife, but now look at me. The gods have cursed me." Gasps echoed through the palace as the elders and guards exchanged shocked glances. Prince Henry's face hardened with fury. "So, you are the cause of all this evil?" Victoria nodded, yanking at her hair. "Yes, my prince, it was me. It was me." She suddenly let out a loud, insane laugh and bolted out of the palace. "Catch her," the prince commanded. But before the guards could reach her, she ran straight onto the village road, screaming incoherently. A speeding motorcycle, ridden by a drunk man, hurtled towards her at full speed. The villagers shouted for her to stop, but it was too late. The vehicle struck her with brutal force, sending her body soaring into the air before crashing onto the ground. She was dead. The villagers rushed to the scene, staring in shock. Some shook their heads. "Her wickedness has caught up with her," a woman murmured. "She thought she could escape judgment," another added. And with that, the tale of Victoria, the jealous and wicked friend, ended in the most tragic manner. A few weeks later, the entire village gathered at the palace. Drums resounded, dancers performed, and everyone dressed in their finest attire. It was a day of joy and celebration. Prince Henry stood at the palace entrance, clad in royal robes, his face glowing with happiness. Beside him stood Priscilla, looking more stunning than ever in her regal attire. She was no longer just a village girl, she was a princess, and soon, she would be queen. The wedding ceremony was grand. The elders blessed their union, and the villagers cheered as the prince placed a royal necklace around Priscilla's neck, sealing their marriage. As they sat on the royal throne, the prince held Priscilla's hand and whispered, "I told you I would marry no one else. You were always the one for me." Priscilla smiled, her eyes brimming with love. "And I am grateful that fate brought us back together." The native doctor was also honored that day. Prince Henry rewarded him with gifts of gold, land, and the highest respect in the kingdom for saving Priscilla's life and revealing the truth. The village celebrated, feasting and dancing late into the night. And so, Priscilla and Prince Henry ruled with wisdom, kindness, and love. Their love story became the most famous in the kingdom, a tale of betrayal, loss, and redemption. And they lived happily ever after. Dear viewers, what valuable lessons did you take from this gripping tale? Share your thoughts in the comments, we'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel so you never miss our latest updates. Thank you for watching, stay healthy, stay safe and stay blessed.